The day the Republic fell was one of death and sadness, as the Jedi Order was wiped out nearly entirely, as the men, women, and children were all slaughtered. And at the forefront of it, the Chosen One himself, Skywalker. Yet while he had assumed the title of Darth Vader, we see that he was still very much conflicted about his actions, as we see that his eyes changed from yellow to blue. Yet after the massacre of the Separatist leaders on Mustafar, we see something unusual. The Sith Lord crying. While this is odd for a number of reasons, the question that the fans seem to collectively share is, why? What could have drove him to start crying? We actually have two different answers for this, both found in separate yet deeply connected Star Wars novels. The novelization of Revenge of the Sith and the rise and fall of Darth Vader. However, before we can dive into these answers, it is important to take a step back and fully examine the events that led up to this tragic transformation. The Revenge of the Sith novel sheds light on Anakin's internal conflict during Order 66, emphasizing how he did not take pleasure in slaughtering the Jedi, at least not all of them. Rather, he saw it as a necessary evil, a sacrifice demanded by fate to bring about the new order and the control he believed the galaxy so desperately needed. This holds true to the older of Jedi, as he believed they were too far gone and too far indoctrinated into the Jedi Code. But when it comes to the younglings, the story shifts. In them, he saw potential, perhaps even a reflection of who he once was. For a brief moment, he questions whether they could be saved, trained, or even turned. But that hope quickly withers under the weight of his twisted logic, and he convinced himself that killing them was an act of mercy, a way of sparing them from the life of pain and lies he now associated with the Jedi Order. This is why, as he ignites the Youngling Slayer 9000 in the Council Chamber, his eyes are not yet Sith yellow. Instead, they are blue, showing that there are still traces of Anakin Skywalker within him. And the tears in his eyes betray the flicker of humanity. The massacre on Mustafar, however, tells a much different story. The Separatist leaders were not comrades or innocent students. They were obstacles, pawns of war that had stolen years of his life and nearly taken Padme from him. He held no respect or remorse for them. Their deaths were not reluctant or conflicted, but personal and deliberate. Even though it was a mission he had to do, he still took great pleasure and pride in it. As he cut them down, his eyes burned with Sith fire, glowing that unmistakable yellow hue of the dark side. It is during this slaughter that we see the full emergence of Darth Vader, brutal, powerful, and without remorse. And yet, once the killing was finished, once the silence of Mustafar returned, his eyes went back to the natural blue, not because he was at peace, but because of something far more unsettling. We get this passage from the combination of the two books I have mentioned previously. Anakin stood on the command bridge of the Mustafar facility, aboard the hand of Durasteel collapsing the hand of flesh behind him. Anakin looked around. He was surrounded by the bodies of his victims. All lay dead, yet his gaze drifted not to them, but to the stars beyond. He saw the galaxy that he believed would one day kneel before him, a galaxy he thought he could shape into his own image. His power was undeniable. He felt it coursing through him like a fire and thunder. He had the measure of his new master already and was beginning to believe that one day he would even surpass him and take his power for himself. He would learn the key to immortality from Darth Plagueis alongside his master. Yet when all was said and done, he would take his master's life and assume control of the Empire with his newfound abilities. But amidst all the fire and certainty, a chill crept in. A slimy, cold sensation that slithered up through his veins, coiling itself into the pit of his stomach. It was fear, one he thought he had destroyed. The voice of a dragon within him, the same one he believed he had vanquished, returned with a whisper. "She will die, you know." He shook off the thought, snarling that it was impossible. He was Darth Vader now. There was nothing for him to fear. He had no reason to have fear. Fear had no power over him. But the voice persisted, cruel and calm. All things die. It was as if the dragon in its final breath had sunk its fangs into his soul, poisoning what remained. Even stars burn out, it whispered. And that's when Anakin began to have doubt. Maybe Padme's death was inevitable. Maybe he couldn't save her after all. And in that moment, not during the massacre, not during the betrayal, that Anakin mourned. He didn't weep for the Jedi, nor for the children he had cut down, nor for the war he had helped perpetuate. He mourned for the death of his former self, the boy who dreamed of becoming a Jedi Knight, the man who believed he could save everyone, the boy who wanted to save his mother. As these thoughts overwhelmed him, Anakin Skywalker cried, not because he was weak, but because he no longer knew who he truly was. Had Anakin truly died? Or was some part of him still clinging to life within the armor of Darth Vader? And then he remembered, Padme didn't fall in love with Darth Vader. She fell in love with Anakin Skywalker, not the Sith. And then, as if summoned by the Force itself, the fiery skies of Mustafar split open as Padme's ship descended, marking the beginning of the end, or perhaps the final test of what little humanity Anakin still had left. A very interesting passage that, when taken into consideration, really shows us the true depths that Lord Vader had fallen in the hopes of saving his wife. But anyway, that is the truth behind why Darth Vader cried on Mustafar. I really hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, it would mean a lot to me if you could like and subscribe, as it would help the channel out a ton. It will also help me with my goal of reaching 5,000 subscribers before summer. So if you want to help me on this journey, please consider subscribing. It means a lot. And with that, my fellow Star Wars nerds, may the Force be with you.